Oi, pessoal, sou Catarina Moraes e hoje eu vou falar com a Madeleine Peyroux. Hi, Madeleine, how are you? So, to start off, I wanted to talk to you about your trip here in Brazil. So, you're playing in Rio, São Paulo, Curitiba, Brasília, and Belo Horizonte, and that's a lot. And it's in a project called Jazz All Night. And what an amazing experience and a gift to you to be here, to come to Brazil. And you've been here in 2015 and 2019. So, what are your expectations for this new show?
Well, I feel like I always feel a great solidarity with the audience when I have performed in Brazil in regarding what we feel about how society is moving right now, what the situations are, and I feel that my concert is a place for just sharing, that kind of solidarity, that kind of encouragement of each other to keep forging the path of love and understanding and social unity and community. In some places in the world, just going to a live performance is now a big deal, and it's more of a rare occurrence for people. I'm not sure that that's the case in Brazil, because I imagine that Brazil has always had the incredible capacity for playing music everywhere all the time, dancing together, and there's always been a great musical culture that is just phenomenal. So I try to learn when I come to Brazil, but we're gonna be able to play songs that I've played many times, the most well-known songs of my repertoire, and I have some new material that I would like to introduce to the audience from a record that I'm putting out next year. And really to just encourage each other to believe that things are going to get better. We're working on making society a better place together, by being together, by showing each other love.
Amazing. Wow. And could you tell us a little bit more about the album that you're going to release in 2024?
Okay. These are new songs that I've been writing over the course of the last 3 years, during the pandemic. And I've been working very hard on writing songs about really how I can address the problems that I see today directly as an individual. So they're intimate, one person's attitude on asking other people to listen, to listen to the problems, and to they're intimate songs, but they're all about social situations.
And you just said that you like to come to Brazil and maybe listen to our culture and appreciate our culture. And you, the first time that you came here, you have a feat, a collab with Martinho da Vila, and it's called Madeleine, I Love You. And I'm a big fan I'm a big fan of his, and I'm a big fan of you. So it was amazing to hear your voices together. And I just wanted to ask you, how was that duet for you? How did it go?
Oh my gosh, it was just a dream come true. I went to the to his samba school and visited his place, where he brought me to the place where he was born. And he said, this is where my parents lived, as they worked for the family who owned this property. And he said, and now I own all of this property.
Yeah.
And then all these kids came running out of nowhere to come to the samba school. They were from the neighborhood.
Wow.
I think of him as being one of the great human beings
Yeah, he's
that I've met
yeah.
in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he really represented righteousness and beauty and love. So
it was such amazing to see you working together with him.
Yes, we didn't see each other very much
really?
when we made the song, because a lot of the song was long distance.
Okay.
But it was magical. And then I performed with his daughter, Martinalia, soon after that at a festival in Ouro Preto, and you know, it's there's so much talent and so much beauty in that I'm just grateful, just so grateful to be included.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you have any collaborations that that are meaningful to you, except from Martin da Vila that you already said, that you already did? Any collaborations, musical collaborations that you already did?
In Brazil?
Or it can be around the world too. It doesn't have to be specifically. Yeah.
Oh, because I don't think I've done any other recordings than with Martino da Vila. I haven't done any other recordings with any Brazilian artists, which is like, I better look at that. Maybe I could someday if I'm lucky. We could do that. I did a duet with Katie Lang, and that was memorable because she sounds so beautiful, and it was a Joni Mitchell song.
Oh wow! Which
is very which are great, always great songs, and sometimes difficult to sing.
Yeah.
Technically, and so I think that might be the greatest collaboration that I can think of right now.
Oh, that's amazing. And another thing, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me, feel free to disagree, but when I analyze some older Brazilian songs and sounds from the 20th century, we can mixture samba, for example, or maybe bossa nova, but you can compare it to the United States and maybe a jazz, and I feel like they have the similar sounds, it's some similarities. And I think it's a continent thing influenced by all our history. And I wanted to ask you, if when you came to Brazil, did you feel the impression that there are musical similarities to what you sing in the United States because of you have a very big jazz background and influence?
Well, I think it's possible. I expect it's got more to do with very specific musical pieces that are typical to different cultures. There's the African culture that came to both of the Americas with very specific influences that then sort of spread in different ways. And that's one area that it seems that you hear. It seems to me that I hear an African rhythmic approach to, and perhaps even a melodic approach to songs. That remind me of then what would happen in early jazz or later blues in America, and also in Central America. Some of the Cuban and the island music, but But if you wanted me to really get into it, I would have to go do some homework.
No, it's okay.
I don't think.
I just mean like it's a superficial, maybe an impression that you felt. But it's
Brazilian
it's exactly,
music well, bossa nova came to America, right? Because at a time when it was sort of in a popular sense, it became part of what we think of popular jazz in America, because that was also not like the bossa nova was not like the deep jazz in America. But when you talk about cross influences in serious jazz, there's an incredible link all over the Americas. And I suppose sometimes I think of jazz as being the first world music in the sense that I think of world music, which is not music from some other place, but world music, which is music that really fuses cultures, that like understands how rich we are becoming musically as a human,
of course, I agree,
civilization
completely.
Because of all of these cross-pollination.
I think it really happened in America, like in the continent, like this happened because of the whole colonization and stuff. But and now I want to talk about in 2017, you did an interview in an Open Mind channel. The name of the channel is Open Mind. And you talked, and I saw, and you talked about like naturally being melancholic. And I thought it was very curious. Like since the childhood, you said like since you were young, you felt a little melancholic. And in that interview, you mentioned trying to incorporate more of a comedic side, or at least attempting to do it in concert. And since then, I wanted to know, how do you feel? Like, how do you deal with that in the concerts? Do you try to bring a little bit of like a light spirit, or do you like to like take it down like a really deep situation in the concerts?
Thank you for asking me. That is such a really very gentle and kind thing to ask me something that's very specific to my personality. And I guess to ask it in the way that you did was beautiful, because it is something that just changes over time. And in my case right now, I feel that being on stage is really uplifting, that the stage is still a magical, dreamy place where anything can happen. Anybody who steps on stage can be whoever, do whatever, and there won't be any problems. And because of that, I think that I'm very uplifted and I'm very lighthearted when I'm on stage. And so I tend to talk in between the songs. I'm in a very lighthearted, happy mood. Not when I'm, when I'm talking to an audience, I'm excited, I'm happy.
Of course.
If the songs are really heavy, then I've had to learn to accept that instead of trying to make a joke about it.
Sure.
But for my new record, I wrote a couple of songs that are kind of funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, people are laughing at, one of them is called Me and the Mosquito.
Wow.
And it's about how I genuinely want to be a good person and love all of God's creatures. And I don't want to hurt anybody except when it's a mosquito.
Wow.
See, I got one laugh.
That's right.
And it's just a one laugh song.
That's a good topic of a song. And in that same interview, I just want to get into that. In that same interview, you discussed also about the time that you moved to Paris from New York, and you lived in Paris in the 90s. And I wanted you to share a little bit of your insights and the differences that you observed, of the musical industry towards women in Paris and in New York City that you moved. What's the difference?
Well, I wish I could tell you, but I didn't stay in Paris long enough to really find out what it's like to work in France. I have worked in France a lot as, somebody who I'm a business owner. I have my own business, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an employee of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was disappointed in the French culture when
Mm-hmm.
I left, and I didn't feel that I could just do or say anything as a woman
Mm-hmm.
that would be equally received
Yeah.
with the same amount of weight
Mm-hmm.
that a man would receive, and that's purely cultural, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, phenomenon. And I feel that in the United States of America, it's a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I haven't really figured out why we did so good. I think it's just because in America we just needed the women to
Yeah.
do more stuff because
Mm-hmm.
we had some periods of not having anybody around. I mean, I just heard this story about World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That I just bought a book that I'm in the middle of about women in World War II in America,
Wow.
because women were not given ranks, they were not given authority,
Mm-hmm.
but the army needed these
Mm-hmm.
women so terribly that they had to join. Otherwise, they wouldn't have never been in the army. But women joined in the army because of the need, because of the World War.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to that point where a woman is teaching men how to fly, teaching men how to use guns,
Yeah.
it's very hard to come back from that and say, no, actually, you should just be in the kitchen.
That's true. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
So there's been some big strides over here, whereas in France, I don't think they've ever had that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And now I want to talk a little bit about like your career, your beginning of career, because I'm an appreciator of like the older songs, and I remember the first time I discovered your music, and it felt like I can describe like a breath of relief, maybe like a deep, intimate dive that it had on me. And it was in your debut album, Dreamland, from 1996. And the song was I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter. And I'd like to ask you, how does it feel for you to know that your voice and your songs resonate with people from all around the world, even when maybe there's a language barrier?
I feel pure ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel purely like uplifted and joyful that that to know that it's possible, that music really can do that. I think it's like, I think that when you're a child and you hear music, you have suspicions about the world, like, I wonder if this could happen, and I wonder if that could happen.
Yeah.
And when I was a child, I remember thinking, I wonder if music could solve this problem and that problem. But there's nobody to ask because it's such a convoluted question that you couldn't ask. You just have to go find out.
Yeah.
And when you tell me that, I believe you. If you tell me that it moves people all over the world, I go,
yeah,
that's just my little childhood dream. It's like it can. Music can do it.
Yeah.
It's music that's doing it.
Yeah, that's true. And you often, I saw many interviews with you, and I saw that you mentioned that music has power and music is powerful. And how did it impact your life? Like, you already said that you had the childhood dream, but in general, how do you feel the music is, what is music to you right now?
Well, I've gone through periods of thinking of it, thinking that it might be like a sort of religious practice, without realizing it. There's a lot of similarities to the the shape of your life where you're in it 24/7, you believe in it, and you try to learn from it. Mm-hmm. So I think of it as being a lot like a bit of a spiritual, awareness. And I would imagine that as such, it's possible for the arts to represent that much. I mean, I guess I might be wrong because, that music has its own specific place in the world, and it does conjure energy and people, joy, community. It conjures community perhaps more than any other art.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's sing together kind of thing. I mean, it's very primal. It's very much the beginning of who we are. Mm-hmm. And very individual because no one will ever sound the same as somebody else.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And so it's I think it's very sacred, really. But can it really teach you everything you need to know? That's a whole other problem.
That's true.
I don't have the answer.
Yeah, that's a hard question. And now that, like, in the context of, like, the 21st century, where do you think the music industry is leading us to? Because of the artists that are coming, of everything that's happening, like the technology, and do you have any opinions about this?
Technology. Well, I heard about a guy recently who started the study of the study of the study of sociobiology, I think it was. Mm. Anyway, he's not the answer to everything, but he said one thing I thought was fascinating. He said, the human race are operating with lizard brains, Paleolithic brains, mm-hmm. medieval societies, and godlike technology.
Wow.
And it's true. The technology is so, as long as we can find a way to find our ethical center, our moral center, mm-hmm. and in society and in technology, mm-hmm. then the technology is going to be good. And until we can't do that, it's going to be bad. I guess that wasn't your question. Your question was about music.
No, but that's also that's also a good way, because I also asked about technology. But yeah, in the music sense, I mean, I felt like I was trying to ask, do you feel like you sing a lot of songs about, like, maybe the American Songbook? And from the mm-hmm. American Songbook, also your songs, but American Songbook too, and the classics. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you do you feel like the society is appreciating and, like, these powerful songs, and, like, I think it's appreciate the right word maybe to like ask. Do you feel like nowadays?
Is society appreciating what? The American Songbook?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, the songs that you're making, the songs that you're doing. Do you feel appreciated by this new wave of, like, society and this technology? That's why I also asked about the technology.
Okay, so I suppose that you're making me think about the future of art and audiences, mm-hmm. and how they interact with entertainment because of the change of technology. And one of the things that has changed is the attention span and the accessibility, and sort of many of the things have changed. Mm-hmm. Also the accessibility, which also means that it's not very rare, that there's quote unquote content everywhere all mm-hmm. the time. Mm-hmm. And so you don't get hungry for it as much. You might not have a chance to find out what's out there because there's so much out there.
That's true.
Unless you have someone to recommend something, and then that's based on trust and community, and there can be very closed communities. We know that.
Yes.
So I suppose what I've always believed in is what I have to keep believing in regards to what makes art good, what makes something good. And good meaning it's nurturing, it's good for you, and it will always be that. Like it'll tap into something essentially human that you can come back to it again and say, yes, I'm still learning from this, or nope, I'm done. I'm not learning from this one anymore.
That makes sense.
And the stuff that you keep coming back to and learn from it again, that's the stuff that's good. That's the stuff that's great. Of course, there can be some things that only last for one thing, and then you pass through it, and that's over now. That can be great too. I'm just looking for the sort of, I'm looking for something that will last. And so when I try to write a song or sing a song, I try to find something that I believe in as being really good, really great. And usually it's a sentiment or a message.
And that's how you usually decide your maybe like album themes. Do you agree? Do you think that that's how you create your work, like your projects?
I definitely look for things that are going to be healing specifically. And I think healing is the main reason I want to be a musician. Yeah, because it heals me.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So,
and your music often evokes like a sense of nostalgia, like as I can say. And how do you strike the balance between like paying homage to the classics, while like also like mixing the unique contemporary touch that you give to your songs? How do you balance that?
It's a really good question, because I don't think that there's an easy way to do it, other than always trying to feel a genuine personhood, like who you are, so that when you're performing the older songs, I like to think that that's the harder thing, is when you're performing the great classics, find yourself in them. If you can do that, then it's okay to then turn around and say, I wrote this song and myself is in this too. And then you're in both. And then you become the link between them. That's one way to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you have any, like, the name? I mean, it's really hard to say. I have a really hard time choosing, like, what's your favorite? But do you have, like, a big name or a big artist or musician that you feel like that has a significant impact on you right now?
Yeah. It's always hard to choose. No, I'm stuck as to what there's so much great artists out there right now. I just discovered a beatboxer named Nicole Paris.
Oh wow.
She's fantastic. And I'm so excited about that. So I was really excited about listening to her.
That's amazing.
I obviously, I'm influenced by all of the great artists of the 20th century that I have covered, like a Joni Mitchell and Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Katie Lang and Bob Dylan and Louis Armstrong and Little Richard and Chuck Berry and this is a really long list.
Don't worry, it's very hard to choose. Don't worry.
It's a very long list.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, when people often compare you to like a Billie Holiday,
Annie Lennox.
Annie Lennox. Oh wow, I love Annie Lennox. But and many artists like speak about the emotional connection that they have with their instrument, and I can't help notice. But you always like playing your guitar. And how do you feel that the guitar contributes to the overall musical expression that your style evokes?
Yeah, I had a particularly special relationship with that, and I'm not sure why, but it was when I first started, when I was making my first record, Dreamland, before we made the record, and I was being ushered around Atlantic Records as a young woman who kind of didn't know anything about it. I didn't expect this to ever become a thing. And one of the comments I got was, it's when you sing and play guitar at the same time that there's an incredible magic that happens. And I'm like, oh, really? And I think that is a phenomenon that happens when you get a guitar, which is the guitar is, not the only instrument that can do that, but it's an accompanying instrument. It's not a lead instrument. And so and it's very easy to get to a very good beginner spot on guitar. It's a little harder to get to that same spot on a piano. So, and it's easier to carry one around. So, there's a lot of good things about it. And I think just having the body of the guitar that resonates pressed up against your body and feeling that resonation, feeling those notes, and then resonating your own voice next to it. That's a magical experience, and if you can do that with a piano, some people can, if you can get your body and another body, like an instrument or anybody, to join in, you're creating the real essence of harmony, which is just resonance, right? People together, things coming together and working together. And it just has an exponential effect on sound.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons I think everybody says, if you want to be a singer, play an instrument, because it helps you to not just to learn music, but it also helps you to feel that resonance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That from outside your body, so then you can recognize it on the inside, and you can really learn.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as an artist, do you sense a responsibility in the messages and the emotions that you convey throughout your music? Do you feel a responsibility from like your public, to your fans, people who admire you, your songs, and what do you try to?
I do. I feel responsibility, like the way I am towards the people in my life. I feel that same responsibility, especially my nieces and nephews. They're very much what I think. They're who I think about, and when I think, well, what do I really want to say, and I realize I just want to tell them whatever they need to know. So I better get to working on that. That's what matters.
No, that makes sense. And I just wanted to wrap it up, so I'm gonna ask you a last question. And it's a kind of, a hard question, but because of your great musical career that's been going on for, you started your first album in '96. I wanted to ask you if there was a piece of advice or a lesson that you learned and you'd like to pass to the aspiring musicians out there. Do you have any advice that you wanted to give?
We need you.
We need you.
We really need you. We really, really, really need you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
We need you to do what makes you come alive. Yeah. What makes you feel better, feel good. We need you to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a beautiful ending to
Okay, well,
one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so sweet, Miss Katerina. It's been a very great pleasure,
Thank you
and
so
I'm
much.
very impressed by your work. So thank you
Oh,
too
thank you
for
so
having
much.
me on your program.
Então é isso, pessoal. Essa foi a entrevista com a Madeleine Peyroux. Não esquece de curtir e compartilhar o vídeo e seguir nossas redes sociais e nosso YouTube. E não esquece de ligar o botãozinho de notificação. Tchau, tchau. Até a próxima.